How is it going, everybody? Adrian Simple and KATOSEPE here for the Gaming Observer podcast. And you're going to hear an echo right now because I was playing the podcast through the same speakers. Anyway, as you may notice, it's been a couple of weeks thanks to these technical issues here for the podcast. Kato, thank you so much for joining me after a short delay.
Yeah, I've missed this. I'm glad, and it seems like it was a good week to come back. We have some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we got lots of things to talk about here in the news. There's a few news items. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into all the stuff that we like to do here on the show. I, in the past 2 weeks, have entered into the job market once again, or I should say I have received a job, which means that I have a lot less time these days, especially with school coming up. So this podcast and any other extra things that have been going around outside of the Gaming Observer Daily have slowed down significantly. And especially, at least in in terms of this podcast, it's going to be more like when we can do it as opposed to every single week. Of course, we're still going to do our best to do it every single week. So
ditching me for that sweet money. I get it.
It's a necessary evil, unfortunately, and I know lots is going off in your life as well. So maybe the break is just good in general. Kato, we have an absolutely crazy couple of news items here. Unfortunately, many of them are like 3 of the 4 or 5 are quite negative. I think we're gonna be getting into some pretty hard discussions here. But you want to just kick this off now? Anything else I should mention in the housekeeping segment?
No, let's go. Let's jump into this. I guess we should probably just say, like, no offense intended for anybody. I know that there are some things on this docket that people probably have some opinions on. So yeah. No offense to anybody.
So first thing up is probably I'm going to reverse our docket a little bit here because I think this one's more important. Fortnite has been removed from the App Store, the Apple App Store, and the Google Play Store. Pretty big thing. So let me just give you the really simplified breakdown here. Epic Games really hates the 30% revenue cut that Apple and Google take, and basically anybody else in the world takes who are platform owners. And they've obviously shown that through the Epic Games Store. They only take 11% as opposed to Steam's 30%. And they decided, hey, we're going to actively do something about this. And they've spoken a lot about it in the past, but this time around they said, hey, we're giving a discount on all V-Bucks in Fortnite. So if you pay us directly, you'll get like a 20% or a 10% discount, whatever it was. Instead of paying $10, you can pay $8 for 1,000 V-Bucks. However, the catch on that was that you had to pay for it directly. You couldn't pay for it through the Apple App Store. If you did it that way, you would have to pay $10. This totally violates the Apple App Store terms of service, the Google Play Store terms of service, which says that you have to go through their systems. So they promptly took the game down, and Epic Games is now suing, or I guess they're not suing, but they're filing a complaint.
Yeah. Is it a suit? A lawsuit. Yeah.
So they are filing a lawsuit against Apple. I don't know if they've done it against Google yet. And
I believe they have. If not, they've expressed that their intent is to do that.
With the intent of getting rid of the 30% revenue share in general, not just to get their own money back or have some kind of special treatment. It's been a pretty wild ride because especially the reason why this is so notable is it's turned into a propaganda / like mob mentality thing that they're trying to do, where, they played like this animated commercial. They've started a hashtag against the company's Free Fortnite. They're getting their very young fan base to rile up and join up together in social media against the Apple monopoly. If they weren't doing this whole propaganda thing, this maybe would be an easier discussion to have, but that specifically does a lot of, it complicates it a lot. So I don't know, give me your take on just how this whole thing played out.
I mean, exactly what you just said. Like, honestly, I don't mind Epic fighting against that 30%. I don't mind Epic pushing Apple to try and allow other sources onto the App Store. They're not the first ones to do this. Microsoft had this same issue with xCloud not that long ago. I really, really don't like how they're doing it. That is my thing. Like this, this was very clearly a planned war between them. Like Epic was taken, or Fortnite was taken down, and Epic immediately had this not only this lawsuit prepared, which is apparently a 63-page like document, but they also had all this social media stuff ready. They had this video that they've been playing in Fortnite that's mocking Apple's one of Apple's ads. Like, this was a planned thing. This was an intentional move. They knew this was going to happen. And now they're acting like this was, they're like righteous crusade. And, I've got a Tim Sweeney tweet here that this is what bothers me so much about how they're doing this. He said, at the most basic level, we're fighting for the freedom of people who bought smartphones to install apps from sources of their choosing, the freedom for creators of apps to distribute them as they choose, and the freedom of both groups to do business directly. Like, that's not what they're fighting for. They're fighting for additional money. Like, that is 100% what they're fighting for. And it's just, I find it so gross that a game like Fortnite is basically weaponizing their fan base against, Apple. Not that I'm in support of Apple. I'm really, really not. But I don't like the use of a social media propaganda campaign using children. Like, that really bothers me.
I think,
so. Yeah, just like you said, like, we would be having a very different conversation about this if Epic had just sued them and that was that.
Definitely at the theoretical level, like, Epic can use whatever language that they want, right? They can say that it's for this ethical concerns, and maybe that is, right? Like, Tim Sweeney has been very vocal about how he feels about that kind of thing, maybe outside of the revenue that Epic could potentially benefit from. But when you're saying, hey, all you children who don't understand what's going on, and at least it's not like something super terrible, like it's not like a racist thing or anything like this, but you're still using a fan base to weaponize against other people. You're creating conflict, and organizing an audience like this into being angry or into being like hostile is just that's something we need to try and avoid with everybody who's young and who's going to be influenced by these social media things that happen. And the more that these companies are trying to just take advantage of that is just, I don't know, it's real scummy.
Yeah. It's encouraging everything that is wrong with the internet culture and gaming culture right now. It's taking that and using that to try and line their own pockets. I don't like how it's going about. That said, like, I do hope this has some changes for Apple. I hope Apple kind of reevaluates how they're going to do things. And I don't think they will reevaluate that on their own. I think it is going to require a court case of some kind to force them to, just because Apple's always been this way. This is nothing new. And despite pressure in the past, they've never changed their stance, iPhones on gaming in general. So part of me is like on a moral stance. I really hope that this kind of goes back to bite Epic.
Yeah.
But I do hope it results in the change that they are looking for at the same time. I don't know. Like, I hope Apple loses this court case, has to change all their stuff, but then everybody's mad at Epic. I think that's the outcome that I'm looking for. But I don't know.
Aerothen in the chat here says, I think Google and Apple should just leave it. People will still go the easiest route in paying, while a small share will go the longer route to get the discount. And that's a good point. Like, I think about it like, Apple is a much bigger, and Google are much bigger companies than Epic. And Epic is a giant company, but I think about it in the sense of, like, Apple is taking 30% of the cut from every app that has existed on their store ever, which is way more money than what Fortnite alone has generated, right? So don't get me wrong, Epic isn't the only one with a foot in this race. There's been other companies that have filed suits of their own and have complaints. Spotify is one of them. But I wonder if this is actually going to be the catalyst that, like, changes something. I feel like if they were going to make, like you said, they did this very intentionally and very prepared. Are they able to do it on their own?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, they certainly have in a PC space. On phones is a very different thing. Mobile is a very different thing, and I think we're gonna see some of that with with Google, with Android, because the main difference between Apple and Android in these cases is that Android, you can download third-party app vendors. So you can just, I believe Fortnite and Epic, I think they already have an infrastructure in place that you can download for Android. Yeah, so you can just go that route, you know, and I think that's probably why Tim Sweeney and Epic in general are focusing their attacks on Apple, because to do otherwise, to attack Google and Android, even though they are suing Google, but to attack them is almost to invite criticism of their Epic Games Store, which does very similar things on PC. Yeah, we'll see.
Pause, man. Also makes a really good point here. When Apple was providing marketing and dev support, the 30% cut made a lot of sense because, you know, they were putting in some kind of value there, but they stopped doing that a long time ago. That's a good point. There's also the, you know, the argument that they made in the kind of counter to what Epic Games was saying was, hey, you know, Epic Games was on our platform for a long time. They benefited from the things that we have, the infrastructure that we've put in place, you know, being featured on the store, whatever it is, having the infrastructure. And now they want a special treatment. That was Apple's argument. Whereas, you know, Epic has gone on to say, hey, you know, we don't want special treatment. We just want fair play for everybody. The other big issue with what Apple said was they actually are giving special treatment to some companies, Amazon, Spotify, Netflix, I think Netflix. So yeah, anyway, it's just, it's really messy, but who knows how it's actually going to turn out.
Yeah, I mean, their arguments in general, Apple's arguments that they have to inspect every piece of content that goes online. Like, that's a big reason they knocked down like xCloud, for example. It doesn't, you're right. It's hypocritical because they do allow things like Netflix. You know, they have music services like Spotify where they're not obviously inspecting every single movie and every single TV show and every single song that goes on those platforms, and they don't seem to have a problem with that.
Right. This
has always been a thing where Apple specifically sees gaming as something different. You know, it's been like that for, you know, decades. This is nothing new. So yeah, I mean, I do hope that part changes. I would like Apple to stop treating gaming like, you know, third-class citizen. I don't know. Sorry. I actually, I'm trying really hard to kind of restrain myself because I'm pretty anti-Apple in general. Like I don't like a lot of things Apple does, but I'm trying to leave that out of this. Like, this is its own specific thing, and I don't fully support Apple in this case. So.
It's very easy when this, you know, most of our conversation has been about Apple and Google, you know, these tech companies, when, you know, this has been a major play in the gaming world, right? Like, it's one of the biggest headlines of the past few months. You know, Fortnite or Epic Games going to war with a major tech company. You know, within the realm of video games, I don't know actually how impactful this really is. We're talking about, I mean, yes, a loss of revenue for Epic if they're not making money on the app stores, but certainly the loss of a game, a very prominent game on the stores for the player is maybe impactful. But I think ultimately, like, when you just look at this from a video games perspective or a video game news perspective, it's like it's a billionaire company fighting a billionaire company, right?
Sure. I could see, this would be an extreme outcome, but I could see, depending on how the court case winds up going, it could potentially open the doors for other app stores on Apple, which I think Epic would very much take advantage of.
Right.
So as far as gaming and how this affects gaming, that's an extreme case. I don't see that as a foregone conclusion by any stretch, but I see it as a possibility. So we might see that way in the future, but it's going to be a long time before we see an outcome from this.
Yeah.
You know, U.S. courts do not move super quickly.
Let's move on to our next story here. Sure. So Microsoft has come out with a blog post, or well, not, I don't know if it was a blog post. I don't know how they said it, but they came out and they said, "Hey, Halo Infinite, the quintessential Microsoft game, the launch title for the Xbox Series X and potentially Series S. You know, the game that everybody has been looking forward to, that we've been hyping up, that has been the headliner of all of our events. We're delaying it until 2021. So it is no longer a launch title for the new Xbox consoles. Probably going to impact a number of sales. I think that game was going to sell a number of consoles. But with the way that Microsoft has positioned themselves, maybe not that big of a deal for them necessarily, and maybe why they were willing to delay the game. This is, I mean, you might have more insight on this than I do, but 343 Industries has been the subject of a lot of different conversations, and why this game may have been delayed could be one of a number of things. But before we get into those specifics, Halo Infinite being delayed, it's a big headline.
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie, my first impression when I read that, I think I woke up and looked on Twitter and saw Halo Infinite delayed. My very first thought was, rip the Series X, like rest in peace. It's done. It's dead on arrival. Because they were propping this up as their absolute like headline title. This was their, I don't know. I was thinking console pusher. Although the more I've thought about it, the more I think that might not necessarily be the case. It's definitely a hit. I don't know if it's necessarily the hit that I thought it was initially, but yeah, I'm curious what your take on it is.
I think a number of what other games was Microsoft coming out and saying this is going to be a launch title on the Series X and this is like a headline game, right? Like I feel like when consoles come out, we're not usually like inundated with exclusives that are like, hey, you need to buy the console for this game. Even something like Breath of the Wild was already out before the Switch came out, right? Like these kind of headliner games aren't always console launch exclusives. It doesn't work out that way usually. Halo Infinite being delayed, having at least the one game was nice, but what else was there? I don't really know. They did follow up with a blog post saying like, hey, we're going to have thousands of games available on the Series X through the Xbox Game Pass, through backwards compatibility. And that's not something that something like PlayStation 5 could say necessarily, right? I don't know how comprehensive the backwards compatibility is there, and certainly nothing like the Game Pass. But I don't think it's going to be a major, like a tremendous hit on console sales, because I think the conversation about console sales has been less about the individual games like they used to be and more about the overall impact of what they're presenting.
I think you're right. The more I think about it, the more, honestly, even with the Xbox One, Microsoft has been propping up their consoles almost as an alternative to a gaming PC. It's like, if you want to play the PC games, but you want a more like living room experience, you're going to have strong hardware. It's going to be able to play games and they're going to look great. And you're going to have the Xbox Live infrastructure and, access to Xbox Game Pass and, all of that stuff. And yeah, it seems like their position has been transitioned way more towards that. And I've been hearing for a long time people saying like the console wars are dead, and honestly I kind of think that's true with this, and I think the Series X is maybe going to be the final nail in that coffin, because they're not going for the same thing anymore that Sony's going for, that Nintendo has been kind of secondary in that race for a long time, but
I think generations in general, like console generations, have like it's a console war because both consoles are coming out at the same time. So you're inevitably comparing them, right? But Nintendo has been off that track for a long time. And then, Xbox is moving more into this kind of ephemeral, Xbox as a brand instead of Xbox as a console. PlayStation is obviously still super focused on what they're doing with the console. But, even just looking at the difference between last generation and this generation, we have the rise of digital sales. We have mobile games coming out like crazy. We have PC gaming becoming way more accessible than it used to be and way more popular, and indie games being way more popular than it used to be. So, like, kind of just this whole transition and this whole industry change, I think, is moving away from that generation idea.
Yeah, I think that's true. For what it's worth, I found an article that it says all Xbox Series X launch games that are currently announced, and I don't know, this is on Eurogamer. I don't know how 100% accurate this is, but Eurogamer, they're pretty good. They have Fortnite and Yakuza.
Oh yeah.
That's it. So yeah, that's I guess Yakuza is now the headline Series X launch game. So Yakuza's finally going to get the attention it deserves.
So Halo Infinite
anyway.
was delayed, and this is a game that has been troubled, and we know this because the creative director of the game left halfway through development. That was a headline that we got. What's that, sorry?
It's never a great sign. Anytime you ever see that for any game, seriously, that's a red flag.
Yep. And, that's a headline we got a few months ago or maybe last year, which, like you said, that's a pretty good indicator that things aren't going well. The sort of the gameplay trailer that they showed off, people were somewhat critical of. The conversation about 343 from the journalists on like Twitter and stuff like that has been kind of like, yeah, we were surprised that they were going to try and get this game out this soon. So I don't know what the working culture is like, if people are going to be crunching until the game comes out in 2021, or if that's what they're trying to avoid by delaying it. But certainly, I hope that it was the right move for them, and they weren't just gonna try and push the game and have another Halo 5 where people were really upset with the game when it first came out, or the Halo Master Chief Collection. People really hated those things when it first came out, and then stabilized over time, and people can talk about it in a retrospective, because that's not what you want when you have something like a console launch exclusive that's gonna impact more than just the game itself.
Yeah, I also wonder how it's going to affect the Xbox One release. Because this was a game that was going to come out on the Xbox One also, I believe, right?
I had no idea.
And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I made that up, but I thought it was. And I wonder, 2021, it's going to be late for an Xbox One release.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wonder if that's going to be pushed back or canceled. I don't know.
What's your investment in the Halo franchise?
So I loved the original trilogy. I have not played it since then. So the last one I played actually was Reach, which makes me sound like a total Bungie fanboy. I'm like, when Bungie left, I was done. But no, I just kind of fell off of it. I don't really remember why I didn't play Halo 4, but I felt like the trilogy was done. The story was done. I don't know.
So
how about you?
You have no ball in the race of Halo Infinite?
I would love to see it be successful. Actually, I kind of have been thinking about getting back into it. Game Pass has, I believe, 4 and 5. So I was kind of like, maybe now is a good time to give it a try again and jump back in. And I thought, I know there was a lot of criticism for that trailer, but I thought it looked great. I know we talked about it on our session for the Xbox, the first party thing, game showcase. That's the word I was looking for. I thought it looked really good. I don't know.
I didn't fully understand why everybody was so upset about that trailer. There was some comments in the Discord too that were like, "Oh, I'm not surprised they delayed it because of how bad the game looked." I was like, "I don't know. I thought the game looked good, but I don't know. Maybe we missed something." But
I don't know. Yeah, people were like, "It looks floaty." I'm like, "Hasn't Halo always been floaty?" Like that's like quintessential Halo right there. So.
You and I are in the same boat. I played the first 3 games when I was younger and then missed out on the rest of them and haven't had my eye on it and haven't really followed it. And I'm interested in the Master Chief Collection and playing through the games again and whatnot. But I don't know if I'm super excited for a Halo Infinite until I don't know. Maybe I have to just play it and see. But
yeah, we'll certainly see. I'm at the point I'm not going to cry if it winds up being bad, but I'd like it to be good. I'd like another good Halo. I did find confirmation they did announce it for the Xbox One also.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I'm just curious if that's going to stick around.
Okay, let's move on to a more positive one before we get back to the third negative one. Fall Guys is a battle royale that I don't know if people have been asking for it, but as soon as it existed, I think we all just went, "Yep, I get it. This is what we needed from Battle Royale." This is Takeshi's Castle. Takeshi's Castle. It's a Japanese game show where you have a whole bunch of people doing crazy things, and then the last person alive is the winner in a game show format. I don't know. I know you played it in the beta. Have you been playing more?
I have not. I haven't played it since the beta, but I did play several rounds during the beta, and it was fun. I did think it was going to be successful on Twitch. I don't think I quite guessed it was going to be as successful as it has been, but...
Tell me, I'm not super familiar with the Twitch numbers.
It's been like number 1 or 2 on Twitch for like a long time. The servers keep going down because they've had just massive success. Yeah, it's been like an unbelievable success.
I know people have been like having a hard time getting into games because of how many people are trying to play it, and the studio is an indie studio, right? Like it's a pretty small team making this game, which is, by the way, if you watch a lot of Fall Guys, which I have, it becomes pretty evident that the game is an indie game. There's you see a lot of the same levels, and they take their time getting patches out and the server maintenance and stuff like that. However, as Aerothan mentions in the chat, Devolver Digital struck gold with this one as a publisher.
Yeah.
They probably found a pretty
100%.
cheap deal with the developers, and then now it's like like you said, the most popular game that people are talking about right now, and I think just absolutely rife with possibility. You throw money at a game like this and it's going to come back. I kind of see it like Fortnite, right? Like it's super easy to do the crossovers. It's super easy to adapt and change and introduce new things. Like it's something everybody understands immediately. And it doesn't have the complexity that Fortnite has as well. So I don't know. Like it's family friendly. Like it has so many things going for it. I think it's a genius game.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's perfect in like every way. It's so easy to incorporate new content into it, which they already have. I follow them on Twitter, and they've announced that they just patched I think a new game into it. And it works perfectly for that, because every time you finish a mini game, then it jumps you into the next round, and it's a totally different mini game. So they just need to slot things in like whenever they come up with it, and have just this stream of new content. And I do think that's going to be what decides, or what determines how long this game lasts, is how able they are to slot in new games quickly. Because I do think people are going to get bored if they just have the same few games over and over and over again. But if they can manage that, which they certainly now have the money to do so, and I'm sure Devolver is like, yes, anything you need, we will. All of our teams are now at your disposal. I think they should be doing just fine.
I will say, like, some of the discussion I've seen, and just because I've watched so much of the game myself, like, people are kind of already tired of the games that are in there, just because of how there aren't a tremendous amount of them. I think there's like 25 or 30, something like that. When you're playing 10, 20, 30 hours of the game already, and you've seen all of them 100 times, you might grow bored of it. And something I do know as well is they don't have like a level editor to make these games. Like all those mini games were made individually just in Unreal with the assets that they had. Because they've talked about, hey, like put it out in the community, have modding support, or some kind of like make a game for us and then we'll feature it into the cycle, like that kind of thing. But they said it would be difficult because they don't really have a level editor. They just make, custom build it all themselves. So it's certainly going to be difficult for them to make it a more varied experience moving forward. I hope that they can streamline it and really, get that ball rolling now that it's been started.
Yeah, I do think it is going to maintain at least some level of its popularity. Probably not at the same level that it's at now, but like you said, it's family friendly, and honestly, family friendly on Twitch and stuff. That's not super common. Even Fortnite's really cartoony and stuff, but it's still a shooter.
Yeah, there's still guns.
There's a lot of parents that are going to be really happy about their kids playing Fall Guys, which is just goofy and dumb looking. You play these little beans that grab each other and like fall off cliffs and stuff. Like I think it's going to maintain a base at least for a while.
So, folks, if you somehow have not heard of Fall Guys, you should definitely go check it out. It's the best battle royale you're going to find. I believe it's $20 on Steam and currently free for PS Plus users. So, if you have PS Plus, go pick up the game. You're probably not gonna regret it. Certainly if it's free. But even the $20, like the amount of enjoyment I've seen people get out of this game, it's worth $20. So, yeah,
I had a lot of fun with it in the beta. I do want to get it and give it a try again.
I'm gonna throw in this other one here before we get to our other one. So I don't know how much you've been following this, but I find it really fascinating. The Remedy Entertainment, who are the creators of the game Alan Wake, Quantum Break, Control, and am I missing one?
Oh, I think so, but let me look, because there's one I heard about just recently. I'm like, wait, Remedy made that? I didn't even realize that was something they made. Oh yeah, way back they made Max Payne.
Max Payne, yes.
Recently, Crossfire X.
Oh, okay.
They are making Crossfire X.
So Remedy Entertainment, they recently put out, or they are going to be putting out an expansion for the game Control, their latest game. It's the second and final expansion. It's called AWE, and it's a very notable expansion because it features Alan Wake, who was the person from the first game. I'm not familiar with the narrative, but essentially in Control, the people who worked in the game was analyzing the case of Alan Wake, and now he is going to be somehow involved. So it's this interconnected universe. They're calling it the Remedy Connected Universe, kind of like a Marvel Cinematic Studios or whatever other universes that have separate entries but then interact with each other in some way.
All those other successful ones, like Marvel.
That's the one I can think of.
Yeah.
I put the call out on the show to be like, hey, has any other video game franchise actually managed to pull this off? And nobody got in touch with me. So I don't know if you can think of any others. But I think the idea for this, the creative director said that this is something they've been building for 10 years. They when they made Alan Wake, they had the intention to do something like this. And I think it's so cool. I just want this to happen all the time. It's very difficult because developers don't tend to stick around with their given companies. Developers as companies don't tend to stick around for very long. Creative directors don't stick around for very long. It's hard to keep that consistency. But if you can manage to pull it off, I think a connected universe of games gets people really attached to certain developers and certain brands, and certainly Remedy already had their fan base.
If this brings even one player to go and play Alan Wake now, then it's a success in my book. That game was... that game is one of my favorite games just ever. It's so good. I haven't played Control yet, so I don't quite know how it fits in tonally. Everything I've seen, it seems like it would be a good match. Honestly, everything I'm looking at on Remedy's game list, they look like they could work in a connected universe. The main thing I've noticed just trying to watch movies do this, Marvel, DCEU, the Dark Universe, which didn't last very long, but you need to have that. You need to have somebody higher up who is a chief, creative director of these universes, because otherwise things get really messy. Like you said, creative directors don't stick around in companies. And then if they really want to expand this and have multiple teams working on games or whatever, you have to have somebody to unify all those teams into one vision. Good luck to them. I wish them the best of luck. It's a cool thing.
The only thing I'll add is I really hope to see this with Quantum Break as well. I don't know if you've played that, but I played that game. It was real. I liked it a lot. It was they had a lot of live action elements in there, which some people criticized, but I thought it was awesome. And the gameplay also was pretty average. I think most people agreed that Quantum Break was a slightly better than average game in terms of all of its elements, but I think all those elements combined made something really cool. If I can see more from that kind of storyline or universe, I'm all for it.
I'd love to see him give it another try. I did play some of a little bit of Quantum Break, and I want to go back and actually finish it. I think it was a good idea. I don't know if they had quite gotten there yet. I don't know. I'd love to see them keep going with that idea. And by all accounts, Control has been massively successful. Yeah. So seems like we'll probably get something else in that vein.
All right, folks. Our final news item here today is from the Avengers video game developed by Crystal Dynamics. I've been complaining about this on the show for so long. I can't even wrap my head around it. The Avengers has something that you would think would be a massive hype, just like Avengers Endgame, the best box office draw of all time. You would imagine that the video game made by a competent developer would also draw in a lot of hype. Theoretically, the game is still going to sell pretty well. I doubt that the sales are going to be all that bad, considering the brand that's behind it. However, they have made some decisions that are pretty questionable in terms of getting people like you and I actually excited for the game. For example, Spider-Man, the quintessential superhero, the one that probably most people is their favorite superhero, is going to be exclusive to the PlayStation 4. A number of missions and cosmetics are going to be timed exclusives on the PlayStation 4, which, again, this is a game that is going to be available on PC and Xbox as well. Not only is there a character just tied to one console permanently, you're also going to get some cosmetics if you purchase a certain pack of bubble gum, or if you are with a certain mobile carrier like Virgin Mobile. And, great, but why do I know more about that than the game itself?
Yep. Cannot summarize it better than that. Yep. Any of this, we've been seeing some of this, like trickles of this for a while, where like if you pre-order a game at certain stores, you get certain things. This is such a gross extreme of that, where you have to have things completely outside of the game, like outside of buying the game. You have to have a mobile carrier, and then you can get the costumes that are, that you want, or buy bubble gum. What? It feels, honestly, what it feels like to me is the Transformers movie, where they don't even care how many people come and see it because they have so much product placement. They almost make their money back just doing that. It's not. I don't know.
It's also,
I don't know.
It's this on top of the reception of the game already up to this point, right? Like, when the game was announced, the big announcement for the Avengers game, people were like, meh, right? And then they got the beta out, and people were like, meh. And the previews are going, and people are like, it's fine, but it's not like the best game ever made. Like, this is the Avengers. No. This should be the best thing that you've ever seen, and it's not. And and so, it's that combined with the marketing aspects of it. Square Enix should probably be doing better with that. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and especially because we haven't been seeing a lot of those like movie tie-ins recently. That's been, it's kind of died off, that trend. Most of them have moved to mobile, actually. Honestly, that's where it usually goes. And this was supposed to be like kind of the big comeback of that. We're going to do that, but we're going to do it right. We're going to have this Avengers game, and it's going to be a big budget, awesome thing. I remember when it first like kind of leaked, or the idea came out, there were a lot of people who were like, yeah, like this is maybe they're going to do this. Like that'll be really cool. And it is not looking that way. I have zero faith in this game at this point. I hope I'm wrong, but
the other, I think, real missed opportunity is like the thing about video games is they would have had so much more opportunity to explore the Avengers from the comics or any other superheroes that they wanted to bring in. The movies can only do so much, right? But when you take the popularity of the movies, put it into video games, you could do so much more with that, and you could be so much more creative and different things and whatever. But when you look at it, it's just the movie, but it looks like a low budget version of the movie, essentially. And so it's like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know. It's tough.
No, absolutely. A lot of people are going to say to this, they're going to look to this and be like, you know what? They're just cosmetics, other than Spider-Man and whatnot. Yeah. But the Virgin Mobile stuff and I think Verizon has one. Is that right? Anyway, the bubble gum and whatnot, they're going to be like, okay, it's just cosmetics. It's not that big of a deal. Like, it's just costumes. But honestly, I think back to I had a game on, I think it was the Dreamcast Spider-Man game that came out, and I remember playing that game, and you could unlock all the costumes for Spider-Man, and it would have descriptions of the costumes and where they came from. And for someone like me, like this was back in 2000, maybe 2001. This was way before MCU. I had never touched a comic book in my life at that point. And I was fascinated, like seeing these different costumes and reading the lore about like, these just brief little paragraphs talking about where these costumes came from and the stories behind them. And I loved that. It's something that stuck with me for a long time, that aspect of it. The original Marvel Ultimate Alliance games and the X-Men Legends games that gave these costumes and information about these characters, because I liked the characters. I wanted to know more about them. And that was a big deal for me. Like for those games, that was a big selling point. So it's not, to me, it's not just cosmetics that they're locking away. It's a missed opportunity. If that's all they're doing with these costumes, it's just like, oh, you can wear the costumes, but they're not giving any kind of, background information for new fans, people who may not be big into the Marvel comics. I really think that's a missed opportunity, and it bums me out a lot.
The other thing I want to clarify is that a lot of people assumed that, myself included, that Spider-Man was exclusive to the PlayStation because it was out of Square Enix's hands or Crystal Dynamics' hands.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case.
No, so it does turn out that Sony has the Spider-Man rights to the movies, not to the games. They don't have like a universal rights to that character. The Spider-Man game, which was exclusive to the PlayStation and will be exclusive to the PlayStation, that's a partnership. That's not a written agreement or well, I mean, it would be a written agreement, but it wouldn't be like rights, exclusive rights. So, they probably did this because of the association with the video game, but it didn't need to be that way. And I feel like that's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, because like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 had Spider-Man in it, and it came out on the Switch. Yeah, so there's no legal reason why that would have to be the case.
Either way, I hope the game is good. I hope that I hope it comes out and it wows everybody and we forget about the marketing in a year from now and, all of that stuff. Because certainly, there's games when I was a kid where, like, even I can think of, like, Call of Duty would do stuff like that, where it was like, hey, if you buy from this, like you said, if you buy from this store or if you whatever. I remember actually one of the games, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I actually remember being like, okay, how far is this store from my house, this store from my house, and I'm going to go to the one that's going to give me the best, cosmetic or whatever.
Sure.
I had a lot of fun with that as a kid. But when this is like what you're hearing about the game on top of the already existing narrative, it's just it's tumbling for me.
Yeah, I remember Anthem. This is going to be a little bit of a tangent, but I remember Anthem when they were showing off that very first thing they started talking about was microtransactions, and this feels a lot like that. And we all remember how Anthem turned out. So, yeah, like if they don't talk about a game, like they don't. If we don't get to see the gameplay, but they're talking about how you can buy bubblegum to get costumes, that is not a great sign. It's not good.
Folks, that is the Avengers video game. Feel free to check it out if you are so inclined. It's going to be coming out later this year, right?
I think so. I think in like a month or two, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to look and confirm that, but we can move on.
And that's been our major news week. I think some pretty heavy hitters, and some of that is from the week before. But the gaming scene has picked up a lot in the past couple of weeks, and certainly it's going to be a lot more in the months to come with a new console generation.
Yeah, September 4th.
Perfect.
That's what I found on Wikipedia. I hope that's up to date.
So yeah, that's the news. The other thing, we kind of covered a little bit of it in the housekeeping at the beginning there, but life has changed a little bit for both of us probably, but for me especially. I'm in this interesting period where we were just talking about this before the show. We have a segment at the end of this podcast where we talk about the video games we've been playing, and I have one game that I've put like an hour and a half into because I'm working from home for 6 hours a day, plus the 2 hours it makes to do either this show or the daily update. So I'm basically working full-time now. You are working full-time while you're also producing your show and everything else that you and I were doing. And I just got to ask, like, how the heck, how? Because I'm still adjusting, and I'm sure I'm going to be able to get back into that routine and I'll be fine. Like, I'm not complaining or anything. But I marvel at how people still have the energy to even just do something like play a video game. I sit in this chair for 6 hours, and then I'm like, I don't want to keep sitting here and play a game. I want to go lay down in my bed and watch a movie. Like I want to do something that's not interactive. So I don't know. I guess just throw that out there.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand a lot. And especially with doing all of our content and stuff, it becomes difficult. I stay up super late. I don't sleep a ton. That's how I deal with it. And I mean, my wife and I play games together, and that helps a lot. Like a big part of our our time together, we play games. So I play a lot of things like that.
Yeah, that's been one of the ones too. I feel bad for Shelby because we played Ooblets, right? We got Ooblets a couple weeks ago, and she loves these games. She likes Animal Crossing. She likes this game called Yonder, which is very similar. These life simulator type games, and Ooblets is the perfect one. It's so cute, and every single time she's like, "Can we play Ooblets?" I'm like, I can't sit in that chair for another 2 hours. Like I just can't do it. If I had some way to do it on the TV, then I'd go do that. But for now, I'm stuck with my setup. But
yeah. Well, I hope it kind of you get used to it, you get settled a little bit, and then it will, I don't know, come back to you a little bit.
I think I might have to transition into like Switch gaming kind of thing where I'm playing more on there, because like really what it is, it's just being here, right? Like after I'm here for some reason, like I can be here all day playing video games and watching stuff, but I can't be here and work and then play. I don't know what the correlation is there, but yeah, I think it's about just, I don't know, finding a new environment or something like that.
It helps. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things working from home, especially that you do as a gamer. You kind of want to make sure you're not wearing yourself down too much. My primary gaming desktop is also my work computer, and it does make it kind of hard sometimes to play games on this computer because I come in, I sit down, I've got my work phone right next to me, and it feels like I'm getting ready for work. I will frequently just like look over to my phone to make sure everything's good there, even though it's off and I'm not working. It's tough. And yeah, honestly, the Switch has been a godsend for that. I love my PlayStation 4, but I have a lot of trouble finding time to sit down in front of that and just dedicate it to that. So the Switch, where I can just take it anywhere I want, I can just like go and lay in bed, or I can go into another room. It makes a big difference.
And I'm thinking also back to what you're saying about just staying up really late. Like the problem with me is that I'm a solid, like, I'm getting tired at like 9, and then like certainly when I'm waking up at 7 a.m. for work every day, like I'm ready for bed at 10:30. Like I'm sure. Like my eyes are closed on the bed, and so my ability to stay awake longer has held me back probably in a lot of respects as well. Because I don't know, Shelby and I have this routine that we kind of stick to a lot that has really helped us with like being ready for the very busy day, especially during school time. So, I mean, that's been like nice. It's kind of a sacrifice you have to make is your time. But anyway, I'm kind of just bringing this up to explain why I might have been absent from the show for as long as I have, why I haven't had games to talk about, and also just like huge shout out to all of you who actually have life responsibilities that I've managed to ignore for so long, because you're doing a good job.
I mean, you're in school. That's what school's for. Part of me wishes I could go back to that. Then again, I like not being broke all the time, so that's
Yeah, that's been a nice change.
As soon as we get the money to actually afford all the games we want to play, we no longer have the time to actually play them.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
How have things been going for you over the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's just been busy. Just a lot of things. There's a few things that I'm not prepared to announce or talk about yet, but I've had family members in the ER. I've been in the ER. Everything's fine. Everyone's okay. Just a lot of it's just a lot of really early mornings as I get calls, or I'm like, oh my God, Heather, I need to go to the ER right now. It's just been a lot. It's been a lot. But I think things are starting to even out. Things are starting to get good, and I'm good with that. Yeah, fingers crossed. I know now that I'm saying that, something awful is gonna happen. Oh.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of it's been good. I had a D&D one shot that I was working on for a long time and spending a lot of time with, and it went well. But it was a lot of time that I was working on that, so. It's just some stuff like that too.
D&D, that's another one where I'm like, I could not imagine going to work and then being like, you know what I'm going to do right now? Prepare for a D&D session. Like, I know a lot of people love it and it's their creative outlet. Like, I'm not like criticizing it by any means. I think it's fascinating and the fact that you're able to do that. But me personally, like, to me, that's more work. To me, that's like, I'm not ready to have the nervousness of being a DM and having to prepare a world and perfectly execute on it.
I don't get super nervous anymore. I mean, a little bit. There's absolutely nerves, but I was a child actor. I dealt with that for a long time. So that doesn't bother me as much, but it is a massive time sink. Absolutely. And I love doing it. I went to school for writing, so getting to use that writing, I really like,
Right.
But yeah, it's a massive amount of time.
I think D&D is really cool. Sorry, what?
Oh, I recommend playing for everyone out there. Play D&D. Don't DM unless you have a lot of time on your hands.
Yeah. I think D&D is really cool. I have a really close friend of mine who has always been the creative. Like him and I grew up together. I was like 2 years old. You know, he's like basically my brother. He was always like drawing comics and, you know, doing fun creative art things. But he was never able to like really execute on it, you know, like he didn't want to go to school for art. Like there was never like the solid thing that he could find that would be like the creative outlet for him. But he liked reading and he liked doing all this fun stuff. He ended up just working in a factory. But recently, or at least within the last couple of years, like he found D&D, and this has been perfect for him to just be like, big, awesome, big epic battles that aren't all that deep and don't take a bunch of like, you know, solid commitment and critical thinking and all this stuff. Just easy thing to like insert into a fun story. And then now that's been a great outlet.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I know a lot of people around me have been like, wow, Devin, you are obsessed. And a lot of it's because, yeah, I feel like I just discovered this entire new medium. I just started playing D&D in like the last 2 years. And I've just like thrown myself wholeheartedly into it. I mean, you can see behind me on the camera. I'll move out of the way, but like I've got all my D&D books in the back there, which I have more scattered around the house.
Mine are in that drawer right there.
There you go.
Go ahead.
No, I think that's it. I love it.
Kato, let's talk about the games that we've been playing. I'm going to go first because I don't have a lot of it. So as mentioned, I have not been playing any games. There was a bunch of games I was playing. I was playing The Witcher 3. I was playing Disco Elysium. I was playing... What else? Hold on. Let me pull it up here because I'm a nerd and I keep track of this. So I was playing Frostpunk and Hitman 2 and Neon Abyss and Ooblets and Apex Legends and Legends of Runeterra. I was playing all these games when I had a million years on my hands to play games. And now I play 0 of them. And then I'm sitting there, I'm having a great day, and I get an email pop up in my inbox that says, "Here is your Rogue Legacy 2 Steam code." And I went, oh no.
I mean, if you want to give that to me, that would be fine. I would be very okay with that.
I got that email, and I was very close to being like, hey, I'm not taking this, or I'm going to give it to somebody else. But instead, I was like, you know what? Like, I put so much time into the first Rogue Legacy in the last few months to get that final achievement. I need to play the sequel when I can. So I have received a review copy, or just an early copy, of Rogue Legacy 2. I am allowed to talk about it. I just can't stream it until Tuesday. But the game is... I put in like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It is like everything that Rogue Legacy 1 should have been. The visual, like the visual, I mean, I haven't played like super in depth, right? Like I've only had a few hours, but at least the presentation of it, compared to the first game, is just so much better. The visuals, the audio, the effects, the language, whatever it is, like they've done such a good job with it. The story, even, I feel like in the first game, the story was really easy to just press through. You didn't really need to pay attention, but this time it's really solid and it's really integrated with the rest of the presentation. They've done a great job. The biggest things about it is that the classes actually feel incredibly distinct from one another. I think in the first game with Rogue Legacy 1, it was like you had your knight, your mage, your barbarian, your ninjas, all these things, but they all played the same. They all the controllers and right, they changed the stats and that was about it. And they had like a unique ability or two, but it wasn't that insane. In this game, every character plays differently, or every class plays differently. They've introduced an archer, which is really cool. And in general, like both with the archer and with the barbarian has changed a little bit so that, typical Rogue Legacy is that you can just run around and hit things as often as you want, and then you just kind of speed through it, if you're familiar with it at least. But, the movement is quite fast. The game has slowed down a lot because of these new classes that they've introduced, Archer and Barbarian too, where you can't actually attack and move at the same time. So if you're the Barbarian, you have to stay in place and swing your axe, and that'll deal like more damage. And then the Mage, is interesting. Okay, well, mage is complicated. I won't get into that. But the archer as well. You have to stay in one spot to attack, or you have to be in the air to attack. So a lot less speed and a lot more focus on like, okay, plan your room, plan your route, how you're going to approach it, and it's something that I think Rogue Legacy really needed. So. It's in early access on Wednesday, I think, or if not on Tuesday. It's going to be pretty good. It seems like there's a solid enough content in early access right now. But if you're not a huge Rogue Legacy fan, then you might want to hold off.
Good to know. I would probably take a look. I actually didn't know it was early access. I thought it was going into full release. So that's a bit of a bummer for me. I might wait. I don't know. Does it seem like... Maybe you haven't gotten to a point where you're able to see it, but with the code that you have, does it seem like it's going to be the kind of early access where it just stops you at a certain point? Or is it going to be like, does it feel kind of incomplete?
So the nature of Rogue Legacy, at least the first game, is you have a giant castle with 4 different biomes, and then once you beat all the 4 bosses in each biome, then you have one final boss, and then that's the end of the game. I don't know if that stays the same format in this game, but I've only seen one biome, the beginning one, and I've tried to beat the boss and I got nowhere close to beating it. And in the skill tree, which is like in between runs, you can upgrade certain skills. There's a lot of them are locked off. That'll be like, this is going to come in a future patch. So it might be like the Hades route where they give you a base game and then they give you another update that adds a whole bunch of stuff and you can kind of do it update to update. But certainly it does seem like I don't know how much replayability Rogue Legacy has after you've gotten through the bosses, right? So it does seem like it's going to kind of cut you off at a certain point. Okay.
Well, maybe I'll have to take a look at that. I don't know. I was so excited when you told me that you got that code. Yeah. It's just a big name. I don't know. I don't think I even realized how big of a deal that name was to me until they announced Rogue Legacy 2. Rogue Legacy wasn't something I'd thought about for a significant period of time, but as soon as I saw that trailer, I was just like, oh, Rogue Legacy, yeah! So that's awesome. I'm so jealous.
Tell me about what you've been playing.
Yeah, so I've played several things. I won't talk about all of them, but I have, I guess I'll start with Trails in the Sky. I was talking a lot about it. I'm still going with Trails in the Sky. I've actually spent a pretty significant amount of time now. I'm like 30 hours in. I'm partway through chapter 2. I don't know, man. I could rant. I actually did rant on Twitter not too long ago about the battle system and why it bothers me. But I feel like ultimately I'm going to sum it up as it's Grandia, but worse.
Okay.
I just feel like its mechanics don't work as well together as they could, and it bugs me. And so I don't know. I might keep going with it. I'm not sure, but I haven't felt a lot of motivation to go back to it. So it's a series I really wanted to like. I've really, really wanted to enjoy this thing because I know it's like 7 games long now at this point, but I don't know. I don't know if I can do it, especially because I heard that the battle system stays the same, pretty much the same through all 7 games. So I don't know. So I think I've kind of fallen off that, but I did play Carrion, which was a cool game. Yeah. So Carrion, if you've forgotten about it, it's the game where it's by Devolver, or I guess it's not by Devolver. It's published by Devolver. But it's that game that's kind of a reverse Metroidvania where it plays like a Metroidvania, but you play as like the monster. It's very reminiscent of the movie The Thing, and you go around like vents and stuff and have to take out soldiers and things in this research facility. And it was really short, but it was fun. The movement felt a little wonky. It uses a system where as you get hurt, you shrink. Oh. And when you're smaller, it's easier to move places. But when you're big and like just this hulking monstrosity, it's kind of unwieldy. And I don't know how good it really felt, but I did play it through all the way. If you really want a Metroidvania, really like the idea of it, it's pretty cool. It has some cool moments. It has a very like show don't tell kind of storyline. So it's a little more clear than something like Limbo or Inside, but it kind of has a similar feel to the storyline where you kind of have to interpret a lot of things for yourself.
So maybe the perfect game for something like the Game Pass?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. If you have it on Game Pass, you should 100% try it. I know a lot of people have liked it. Actually, I think most reviews and stuff have been higher than what I felt about it. But I did still like it. I don't regret getting it. And I will post on my Twitter again the Switch logo because, oh boy, they had a great launch logo for Carrion that they changed.
Oh, okay.
It was supposed to be of the monster. It looked very suggestive.
Oh, okay.
It was funny, and I noticed. I turned on my Switch the other day and noticed that the icon had changed. It was like, I think I can figure out why. But yeah, and then the last thing I'll go into quickly is I started playing Planescape Torment again, which if you don't know, this is a game from the 90s, I think. I think it was like 99 or 98. But it's one of the Infinity Engine games, so it's in that same vein as like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Icewind Dale.
The game came out on December 12th, 1999. So right before 2000.
99. And these games, if you've played them, they look dated for 99. So it's one of those things. I modded the heck out of it, and it does have an enhanced edition now that you can play. I have the original from a long time ago, but there is an enhanced edition you can play on modern devices. It's a lot easier, but I did mod the heck out of it and have been playing that, and it's been cool. I did want to talk about it a little bit because like I played. This was actually the first D&D game that I spent any real time with. I had played a little bit of Baldur's Gate before, like when I was a kid, didn't understand any of it. And I had a buddy at work who was teaching me how second edition D&D works, which is the system Planescape uses. And it's a very heavily modified second edition for what it's worth. But I didn't understand like THAC0, which is one of the dumbest concepts ever made. Or even just like what it meant when a weapon says it's going to do like 1d6. Like I just didn't know what that meant. So I also, like in regards to Planescape Torment, I didn't know anything about D&D lore, really. I knew, what an orc was from Lord of the Rings, but I didn't know what a Gith was or what a Tiefling was. I know a lot of people know Tiefling now, but that was not a very common like thing back in the day. And so I gotta say, for anyone who's new to these kinds of games, do not start with Planescape Torment, because Planescape is an incredibly insane setting where everything makes no sense. It does make sense, but it's very, very confusing. And the game is written in kind of that 80s cyberpunk style where they're going to throw terms at you and hope that you figure it out with context. But when it's throwing terms like they call money jink in it, and various things like that. Cutter, they call everybody cutter. That's like person. When they're throwing terms like that at you, along with things like Githzerai and Tiefling that are established D&D lore, it's really confusing. So I would recommend anyone try it if you are aware of D&D lore. Otherwise, go for like Baldur's Gate. But I've been really enjoying it. It's been like kind of a night and day experience for me, where all of a sudden all of these things are making sense to me because I've done a lot of D&D since then. And I'm just like, oh, I get it. There's like one of the main characters. I didn't understand his story at all, and he's a Githzerai, and I just, that whole thing was so bizarre and weird to me. I didn't know what that meant in any way. I'm like, oh, this guy's like meditative, I guess. And now I'm like, oh, I understand. And he doesn't like these people because of this, and he's like tormented because of this. No pun intended. The game just makes so much more sense to me now.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been cool.
I definitely need to look at the D&D games more. I feel like, I love the idea of D&D, but then when I do it in practice, like I've only ever been the DM, so that soured a lot of experiences for me. But, I feel like the game could provide like a good, kind of framework for that, especially because I like the setting. And I don't know, I thought about doing Baldur's Gate anyway, so maybe that's just the good encouragement. Not that I have not that I'm actually going to do it, but if I ever do decide to go the D&D route, that's where I'll probably go.
Baldur's Gate 3, it's coming out, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to hear about it. It's kind of future news, but yeah, they're doing a big event on the 18th. That's supposed to be some kind of big reveal for early access and everything. So yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, I love the Infinity Engine games, but they are really dated, really difficult to play. Even the enhanced editions, I think they're difficult, especially the second edition rules. Second edition is dumb in so many ways, that at this point I'd probably recommend people just wait for Baldur's Gate 3 if you're really interested in it. 5e is way simpler. Yeah.
All right, folks, that is going to wrap up the Gaming Observer podcast. Thank you so much for joining us here today. As mentioned, this may return next week or may not. We're kind of just going to play it by ear. But if it does come back, it'll be on Saturdays instead of the usual Tuesdays that we were doing before. Kato, where can people find more of you if they so desire?
Yeah, I would check out videogameoftheday.com, which is where I have links to all of my social media. I have episodes up of my show, Video Game of the Day, where I talk about a different video game every single day. And it also has links to the Alexa pages where you can enable that to play on your flash briefings in the morning, which if you're here, you've probably heard flash briefings through Amazon. So, yeah, you can enable mine and hear about different video games all the time.
Folks, if you would like to hear more from me, you can go to thegamingobserver.com. And in particular, the podcast feed of The Gaming Observer has been taking off recently. I have no idea why, but if you are currently listening to this on the podcast feed and you are a new, recent listener, it would really help out a lot if you told me where you're coming from, because my podcast service has no idea where you're coming from. Either way, thank you so much for being here if you did make it this far into the show. And until next time, happy gaming, everyone.
Happy gaming, everyone.